All right. We are live and we are here to talk to two of the most incredible industry sages that I've probably met in my whole career. Both of these gentlemen are a literal biography of stories, of experience, of industry, and both of them are really on a mission to do the give back, right? Whether it's at the corporate level, but also their teams as well as different groups. Their energies are so matched to my nuttiness, and we just had to get them on to the ISSA SoCal virtual. Let me welcome the two characters that we've been able to swindle into joining us. Jeffrey Aguilar, no one knows him, and Freddie Cook, no one knows him either, right? Like
No,
you really
no.
just we plucked you out of a nebulous. Welcome. I'm gonna say I've talked to both of you personally and professionally. We're gonna keep it real today. We're just gonna keep it real. We're gonna cover what I'd like to be able to do is really, you know, early, mid, and late stage career, the kind of things that we're seeing today, the kind of experiences that you've had that you're like, yeah, we'll never do that again, or you shouldn't do this, or you should do this, right? What do we want to bestow upon the current uh, the current sages, the current ones who are fighting to get to, a better status, and the ones who are trying to break in, right? That way we can really share our scars, our dramas and traumas to help them. So I'm going to kick this off with letting, and I've prompted both of them that they got to be creative with their intro. I don't need their biography that I can read on LinkedIn. So I'm going to kick this off. I'm going to go off stage, and so why don't you please give us a little bit of insights into what makes you that you, Jeff?
Typical male fashion. I don't know where he went.
Did
hi
you did
everyone.
you yeah, sir, sir, you don't even
I'll
know how to
kind of
follow
do
a
a
prompt. I
Twitterverse
said you
kind of
need to
bio.
introduce yourself.
I do security and stuff that people ask why. Like, why do you want to run 50 miles through the mountains? Why are you thinking 100 miles? Um, I do a lot of stuff on the side outside of family. Most of it is fixing things that, when Mel comes into an organization, we have to do a lot of fixing. So that's kind of it. What about you, Frederick?
Wait,
Well, let's
hold on.
see.
Wait, hold on. First of all, I think there was a lag there, and he didn't even hear me. But okay, I see you, Jeffrey. Just wait till we get back on. All right, go ahead.
So, as a short bio, Freddie Cook, ex Army SIGINT, ex Telecom, um, made my way through cybersecurity without the benefit of college. Went in the Army when I was 17, and by the time I got into the industry, it didn't seem where college was going to add much, so I didn't go. But right now, I'm a director of risk management programs at a government contracting firm.
All right. Apologies. We're having a little bit of an issue streaming to LinkedIn, but this is being recorded on YouTube, so I'll end up reposting this. But
Sure.
um, what I really appreciate about you two is the one. Thank you, Jeffrey, for the snarkiness. Of course, I'm the one who leaves an organization in shambles. Sure, sure. Yeah, trust me. I got more calluses and scars of cleaning up other people's messes than a lot of other folks. Maybe not you two, but because the thing that I love about the stories that you've told in the past, both of you, is you're both battle scarred and ridden, like real battles, right? With industry personalities, with industry initiatives of like wait, I only have $2 million to roll this out, or I only have $500,000 to roll this out, or maybe I was able to convince them to give me 5, 10, 50 million, right? But I really needed 50, right? Those are those challenges where you're going through. I personally have been a developer. I've been a network guy. I've worked through the whole chain all the way up to kind of know what the teams at every level had to go through. And then I think I do okay in convincing leadership for the right investments and saving money. So walk us through, we'll kick this off with Freddie. Walk us through with your, decades of experience. What do you tell somebody who's starting off, getting their certifications, has some a little bit of muscle into their training of getting into whether it's IT or cybersecurity? What do you today? What would you say to them to say, you should focus on, right? And then I'll prompt you, Jeffrey, with the same question.
Well, in terms of the actual items that you should focus on, it really comes down to your personality, whether you want to be on the more of the uber technical side or on the more investigative side. I would say you want to kind of figure out where you belong there. But what I would say, especially for the uber technical folks, is you really need to work on your soft skills. The myth is that as long as you're the smartest person in the room, that you'll get all the accolades and all the awards and all the funding. And unfortunately, nothing can be further from the truth. So you really need to work on your ability to talk to people and to understand what the mission is of the organization that that you're working for, as well as their budgetary constraints, so you can understand how to create the best solutions to help them move forward.
Yeah,
I'm going to add you in here, Jeffrey, just so that you can actually go toe to toe on the recommendations, and I appreciate that, Freddie. And I know there's a lot there, especially for me. Yeah, we can be very technical, we can be very hands on, but also that broader spectrum of understanding the business, the need, and the ask. Right, that's bigger than just the current task that you're on. So I'm going to let you two riff.
Yeah, I 100% agree in the soft skills. That's something I kind of like harp on to this day, even for the most senior of people. I think for the younger people, when I speak at the high schools or even the university level, the first question I usually get is, how did you get to your position today? And I threw a career roadmap together to kind of show like there's no straight line to get there, right? And being fully transparent, I had no idea what a CISO was. I wasn't even in security. I started off running Cat5 cable, right? Doing punch down blocks, stuff like that.
Oh, did plenty of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I knew I wanted to do engineering. It seemed cool and interesting. Let's build stuff. But I had no entry point, right? So for me, what I did was I spent a lot of personal time just hanging out with the engineers at work, watching their projects, really shadowing without them knowing I was shadowing. The ongoing joke my first year out of my undergrad was, where'd this guy go? He's not around. I'm like, yeah, it's part of the hustle. I'm trying to move forward. So I think for anybody just trying to get their foot in the door, you got to kind of have just some passion in that initial area, that first step, because that first step's going to change 1,000 times, right? And the people
Absolutely.
I mentor, I don't know about you, Freddie, but when you do my mentoring, I like to ask people, I do a lot of reading, right? Stephen Covey, I love one of his habits of start with the end in mind. So I like to ask, especially the young people, right? Where do you see yourself 30 years from now? That's an impossible question for most people to answer, even at my age. But it kind of gets them thinking, because strategically, if we stay with the industry stats that we transition in technology pretty frequently, let's say it's 2 to 3 years. Over the course of a career, you're talking 15 or 16 moves.
Yeah.
So it forces you, I think, to be a little bit more strategic in making a move versus, well, if I take this promotion, I'm going to make, I don't know, let's say 5%, 7 to 10,000 more per year. After taxes, that's nothing. That's not life changing. But does it set up the next move?
Right. Yeah, yeah. I think for me, one of the hardest lessons for me, and it's kind of what I had opened up with, was when I first got into my career, I really wanted to be the smartest person in the room, and I worked hard to do that. I was in telecom for 20 years and built many networks, but I used to keep manuals, tech manuals. I had in a closet at my house, and I would sit around and read tech. I was that ridiculous about it because I wanted to be the smartest person. I thought as long as I'm the most technical, that everything is going to fall onto my lap. And it wasn't until I was around 40, 41 years old, which is really late in my career, that kind of the light bulb went off that I've been wasting all of this time trying to be the most technical and not being the most useful. And so what I had to do was I had well after I finally realized that I had to change, but getting to a point where when I would go to a new organization, I would just listen for a couple of months,
Hmm.
and really get into all the different parts of the organization and see what they care about, see what their business processes are, what their budget is, all of that kind of stuff. And that way, when I did open my mouth to speak, it was based on their mission and not based on my ego. And
Yeah,
so I had to learn to be a listener.
that's a career maturity because I mean I remember I think it was my first job. I moved from that kind of break fix, just
Hmm.
cabling to okay, now you're an engineer. I'm like, there's no book to engineer, right? And I was basically asked to do a route summarization and
Hmm.
BGP injection, all this stuff, and I'm just like, oh, I probably should have paid attention to some of that, right? And I was definitely wasn't the smartest in the room, but I got to a point, kind of what you're talking about, that I just absorbed material. I could read it, retain it, and understand it. And I like to make it known, it's career immaturity at that point in your early 20s. And I made it known, like, yeah, I know more about this than everyone. And
Hmm.
at one point, one of the directors just pulled me into an office, and he kind of resonates with what you said, Freddie. He said, it's all right to be the smartest person in the room, but you don't have to constantly let people know you are, right? Pick your moments,
Yes.
shine, drop the mic, build the
Hmm.
reputation on.
Hmm.
So, but then the flip side of that, especially once you kind of mature through the career, is if I always tell my teams, if you're in a meeting and you say nothing for that meeting, you provided no value. What was the point of you being there?
Absolutely.
Right? It's
Absolutely. And so the
I,
difficult part is, and I've seen this, I see this a lot, especially with a lot of the old school guys, where it's that I know what I'm talking about, and so everyone should listen to me because of that. And unfortunately, it's just really not that easy. And so we do have to be better. But yeah, we absolutely need to speak up, but we need to speak up in order to, what you said, show value, not speak up just to brag about how much we know.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's also the difference as you start to kind of establish yourself as a practitioner, a generalist, whatever it is. I mean, when I transitioned into leadership, it was never in my plan.
Hmm.
All I saw when I thought about me and my career was engineering's fun. You're building stuff, you're kind of tinkering, you're figuring it out. But then I think I don't know what happened. And just I got to a point I was tired of being on teams that had just bad leadership, and I was positive I could do better. Like, why are we going through all this pain? And I made a lot of bold moves to kind of force my way into it. Because the other thing I hear a lot of people, especially out of the colleges nowadays, is they're waiting for the opportunity versus going and breaking the door down. If there's no door, make a door,
Yeah,
right? I
yeah.
think that's more of the old school approach of making our own opportunities versus just kind of waiting for it to land on us. Um, but I think Mel's popping back on. Yep,
yeah,
there he is.
no, yeah, I am. I'm just trying to fix the live streaming in the background, but I there were a couple points that y'all made, and it was right. Uh, we don't know everything. Sometimes we focus on the wrong things, right? We think if we know every bit of every, technical or otherwise. And then the other huge thing, Freddie, you dropped it like it was hot too, right? It was know the business, know the process, right? One of the books that I recommend to all the super techie white hats, black hats, everyone's like, read the personal MBA book, right? Get an
Mhm.
understanding of what the business is looking to do and how they think, right? Why is it that you can't get budget? Well, because they need to,
Mhm.
make sure there's a bottom line and ROI. And some of those folks don't even know some of those acronyms, right? They don't know
Right.
the business side, the needs, the marketing. And I'm like, yeah, you really need to kind of understand that kind of stuff in order for you to realize, oh, that's why I'm not getting budget, or this is how I need to convince them, right? Hey, having zero incidents is really hard to pitch on why you might need,
Mhm.
more money, or why the current budget is fine and you can't cut it. You can't just cut it in half because you have zero incidents. It's like you have zero incidents because you're doing the right thing, or you're close to zero incidents, right? And it's manageable. But from a youth standpoint, I see folks who go so deep, right? They love their Network Plus certificates. They love their Security Plus. They go in deep on all those, and then they expect, a 6+ figure salary, and they're like, well, why can't I get a job? I'm like, well, because you haven't broadened your exposure to a lot of the stuff you're doing. So
Yeah, yeah,
that's
and also,
the effort. Yeah.
yeah, and also with those certifications, the problem with those certifications is you're getting certified based on outdated information. So you really don't want to go from the certification and then walk in the door spouting some of the terms and technologies from your certification, because you may end up embarrassing yourself. And so when I talk to young people who are trying to get into the field, I tell them, I said, you need to keep up on the latest threats, the latest exploits. Listen to podcasts like Paul Security Weekly. Go to websites like Krebs on Security. Find out what's going on now. But understand the way those certifications are and the process it takes to create the information, the coursework in there. By the time that stuff has been created and approved and publicized, it's fairly outdated. So if that's what you're using to find work, you're setting yourself up for disappointment.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more about positioning yourself as somebody that's trainable. I mean, some of the best people I've ever worked with didn't have a traditional background.
Absolutely.
I worked with this one guy named Don, and I need to find him today because this guy, he was just fun. He was a hustler. He is a double CCIE, no education. He couldn't write anything, but he could design, architect. So the role with Don was we had to hire a tech writer basically for his projects because he couldn't write it, he couldn't articulate it, but he was brilliant behind the scenes. He could just get it done. He
Hmm.
wasn't self-taught. He'd pick up a book, and CCIE is not an easy thing to do, especially in the old
No.
days. But
Yeah.
to pull the double, I mean, I always look for people that are more trainable. The certs are good, but I mean, the reality is it's an entry point. A lot of HRs are using AI. They're using algorithms. They're doing
Hmm.
keyword searches. Um, it's funny. One of the guys on my team has his whole wall is certs, very well rounded. And I always see it, and I kind of cringe a little bit because I had a lot of certs back in the day, but then when I looked at my resume, what's the story I was trying to tell? Am I an engineer? Am I a technologist? Am I a security person? A leader? What is it? Right? What's my direction? So I
Yeah.
purposely chose not to get a CISSP. And I kept hearing from time and time again, there was a requirement to be a CISO. I'm a 3-time CISO. I've never had the cert. I've never needed it. I might do it this year just to check the box, but for me, there's no value in the end.
Yeah. There's no need. There's no need. I got my CISSP back in 2008 only because I had to, because of the way the 8570 requirements were in the Department of Defense to
Mm-hmm.
be at the time we used to call an IAM, Information Assurance Manager. Now, of course, it's ISSM. But back then, in order to be that, you had to have a CISSP. And so that was the only reason why I got it, because there was actually no way without it.
Yeah, and I mean, and then if you're in services, I mean, I get the certs because, right, that's part of your bill rate. The more
Hmm.
certs you have, the more marketable you are to a potential client. It's all
Hmm.
part of upselling vertical. So, I mean, I'm not saying that certs are a bad thing, but they shouldn't, an organization should not just go all in requiring certs. Because I've also hired people that had every cert in the world. Then you get them and you're trying to even brainstorm a concept. Nothing,
Absolutely.
nothing behind it.
Yeah, and you
Yeah.
find that
Yeah.
also, and this is not to put down college people because I'm biased since I didn't go, but I've had PhDs work for me who, okay, you're a great researcher, and this is nothing against someone becoming a PhD. I know some that are highly intelligent, but because you have that does not make you intelligent. It doesn't make you capable only based on that. There has to be something else.
Yeah, I mean, the certs at the end of the day, I think of them kind of like anyone applying to, like, let's say an MBA program. There's usually a GMAT, and the GMAT, all it's measuring, it's not how smart you are. It's measuring what's the likelihood you're going to complete the program, right? Because
Right.
from a university perspective, it's all business at the end of the day. They want to post certain statistics and ranks, and we have this many people from these demographics, and now they're achieving within these industries. That's all it's really measuring. It's success. The certs are kind of doing the same thing. I mean, I
Yeah.
think for one, they're good baselines, I still think, because for one, especially if you're getting somebody out of college, because they're able to complete something, right? They figured out a way to research and study, but it shouldn't be the only gauge. I mean, the gauge I like to use, regardless of education and background, can I train them, right? Do they have the
Yes.
bad habits that we have to kind of undo now, and then kind of go old school with them and take them forward because it worked for us?
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's why I talk about keeping up with the news, keeping up with what's going on. I ask people all the time, especially when you're trying to break into the industry, what organizations are you involved in? Are you in an ISSA, or are you in an ISAC or ISC squared, or wherever where you can network? The main reason, if you're brand new, to get into these organizations is so that you can network and meet people. Because when you send out a resume, you're pretty much cold calling. it's
Mm-hmm.
it's so much better when you have a referral to a position. It makes life so much easier.
Yeah, 100%. It's funny. So in my last role, I had an intern. We vetted 100 people. I picked three, and then we staggered them throughout the year. The last intern I had, the kid was a rock star, right? He was very kind of development savvy. So I envisioned him being an architect at some point. So he does the rotation through my office. He asked a lot of questions, but I had to keep reminding him, you're trying to get in the industry. I'm giving you a view 25 years down the road, right? And
Hmm.
it's not fun. It's not sexy. You're not wearing a hoodie at Starbucks, doing all this cool stuff you see in a movie. Because he was always asking, like, well, yeah, okay, we're writing a policy, big deal. I'm like, yeah, but the implications of this policy is 100,000 plus people, right? So the irony is, I'm at a conference maybe 5 or 6 months later, and I run into a CISO for a large organization, and he starts asking me about this specific intern. I was kind of like, it was just a weird question, right? How would they have known each other? How would he have known that this intern was working on my team? I come to find out it's his stepdad, and he was told to name drop who his stepdad was, and he chose not to, and he was able to do it on his own anyway. And he was still probably one of the strongest interns I've ever brought in. But he had that ace in the hole because I would have definitely taken a closer look at him. But him on his own, right, standing on his own 2 feet, he manned up. He beat 99 other people to get the selection. So,
Yeah.
I don't know what would you do if, you're at the start of your career, right, and you had kind of that card you could play. So I kind of
Oh
debated
yeah,
it.
you
Here
absolutely
now,
have to. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, I would play the card. It's hard enough.
absolutely. Absolutely. You have to use everything that's at your disposal. And but one of the other things that people really need is curiosity. I had a young lady who came to me as a summer intern. This was many years ago, back when I was still in government, and she knew much of nothing about cybersecurity, but she had this extreme curiosity. And I couldn't make work for her fast enough. She was always back in my office. Okay, what's next? Explain this to me. Help me understand that. And when the summer was over, I was able to bring her back as an employee, and she stayed at our agency for I think about 3 or 4 years. But when she left, she was a recognized subject matter expert amongst everyone else. And I say that because you have so many people in our field who've been around for a long time, and they rest on that. Well, I've been doing this for 25 years, but they haven't really updated their skills. They've lost a lot of their curiosity, and they're wondering why this young rookie is now taking over for them. And so that's one of the great things about cybersecurity, is that you have no reason at all to be intimidated by someone with more experience, because a lot of the threats are brand new, and a lot of the stuff that those people learned 20 years ago, no one does anymore. And so, you can come in if you have enough curiosity and you're willing to put in the work, and you can excel beyond that person who has those decades of experience.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think with the experience, what you get really is just more of a tool set to pull from. I
Hmm.
mean, there's a lot of scenarios we've seen with incident response.
Yes.
Um, the fundamental pillars of cyber have never really changed. CIA is still CIA.
Yes.
Actually surprised they haven't introduced, the G for governance, because
Hmm.
everything kind of revolves around governance, right? And I know NIST plugged it into the framework finally,
Hmm.
but there's a lot of lessons learned that come with experience. But then I think that's also why, in my age group, a lot of the guys that I knew were hardcore engineers. All of them
Hmm.
have actually moved on because they started to lose that curiosity,
Yes.
but they were better at leading. And part of leading is developing, right? And I mean, that's important. The team I've inherited where I work now, I'd let them know day one that the people pillar is foundational for our success. It's not
Yes.
about throwing budget and hiring, guys that have 20 years of experience and a million certs. It's all about developing what we have. What are you passionate about? Are you in the right area? Do we need to possibly move you? What do you need to be successful? Right? Put it
Hmm.
in their hands so they can kind of drive their own career forward. And then with that, I personally, I see retention, huge reductions in attrition. You get more
Hmm.
of that passion, desire, but then there's also word of mouth because the younger people are more connected than we were. I've
Yes.
got so many resumes, man, coming in between LinkedIn, the last place I worked, and referrals from people on my existing team. They just want to be part of something new and visionary. So it's like, cool, let's go kick the door down and build it.
Yeah.
Let
Yeah.
me
And
jump in on
especially,
that one because
go ahead.
I want to jump in on that one because I think we all share in this common theme, right? We know we have work to do. We know we have constraints. We know we have all these other wonderful things that go on. But if you have the experience and you've been through the trenches, patch panels, token ring, your Ethernet, right? And you know what they're going through today, right? With how do I stay hungry and strong and everything else, and you help develop that, right? You're gonna have a following of people who are going to want to follow you because you know you can feed them to continue to
Mhm.
learn. That's one, and then two, if you get the folks who are complacent, right? You can call them out very quickly, right? Like, oh, all you want to do is scrub through logs in Splunk for the next 2 years. That's cute, but you're not going to be able to advance, right? Because it's going to get automated or somebody's going to do that plus, plus, plus. And what I appreciate about it is that the continuing growth component is a perfect segue into the next piece is okay, so you've got your baseline, you've got your experience, maybe you've leveled up and maybe you've got a small team. How do you take that next step into, hey, what are the things that I need to learn to grow up, right? Let go and pick
Hmm.
up. So I'll let you two riff on that.
I mean, I would say a lot of it just really has to do with the direction you want to go. And just like in a lot of careers, you often don't know enough about that field to know exactly which way you want to go. And so you may have to try a few things. But once you figure out which way you want to go, then you really have to seek out mentors that are already over there, people you can ask questions to, people you can bug to death, with questions, and try to get involved in things that are going on, and try to jump in as many things as possible without fear of failure, because to me failure is one of the greatest things, that if you take hold of it, as long and you don't continue the same failures, of course. But I found that not having a fear of failure, of saying, okay, well, I want to take this over. I know I'm new, but I think that this is something that I can add value to. And hey, boss, what do you think? Do you mind if I try this?
Yeah, and that's an interesting point, because not every organization, not every leader, I know you two and myself are probably in that mindset, are in that stage at all to be able to say, let me help lift this person up. Let me give them more work. Let me tell them who to connect to in the rest of the organization so that they can learn more. So what do you do when you're in a situation like that and you're in a company that they just want you to be that functional role? They don't help you for anything. I've been there plenty of times, right? They don't help you for anything, even at the top leadership standpoint. What do you do then?
I mean, I know what I do, and I look for the next opportunity, right? It's our careers are somewhat short-lived when you think about it, right? Average retirement age now, I know people are working a lot later, but if something becomes challenging, a little stagnant, I mean, there's a lot of danger in being too comfortable. Making moves to new things. You go through the honeymoon phase where things are fun, new and exciting. But at the end of the day, if I'm making a move, it's because I see I can provide value. It might be more strategic. I've also heard from, some folks kind of a little off the specific topic, because I'm still kind of thinking about the new people at the mentoring. If you don't have a career mentor, get one. I've had one since my mid 20s, and they kind of evolve, and that relationship changes over the years. But you got to have that sounding board. I mean, I have a list of people I can call today just to bounce ideas off of. Sometimes it's more personal and career development. So I always get asked, okay, you've been a CISO for X amount of years, now what? What's the next move? And there's
Yeah.
always a next move. Anybody that says there's not, I mean, they're not being honest. I'm pretty transparent, but you got to always be forward thinking, right? If I'm going to try to develop a team, how do I inspire them? I don't want to motivate a team. The motivated individual gets through a challenge, initial challenge, certification. But how do you inspire them? Then their passion's going to grow, and that curiosity, like you said, Freddie, that becomes wildfire, and that's contagious in a good way, right?
Yeah.
It's synergy and momentum at that point. You can do some great things with it.
Yeah, I would actually challenge that person before they leave that organization. I agree with you that if there is no growth, that you should look at making a move. However, I think that there's also benefit in learning how to advocate for yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
so sometimes you may think that there's no growth, and sometimes you didn't talk to the right people, you didn't ask the right questions. And so I would ask that before you make that move, that you go to leadership and ask the question, and try to figure it out. You never know. A lot of times we make the mistake of thinking that everybody's thinking about us, and that can be really disastrous. A lot of times, folks in leadership have their minds on other things, and they're not even thinking about in terms of your growth and things of that nature. So sometimes you got to bring it up. You got to bring it up and say, look, hey, I'm not doing anything right here. There's so many things I would love to get into. Would you be okay if I took on this project or this or that? And yes, if you're constantly getting shut down, then you probably need to move. But another way that I agree with you is running it through mentors. I've had so many mentors over my career. I still work for one of my main mentors who helped me to get into government, and I work for him in government. And so just having those people that you can say, hey, this doesn't make sense to me. Help me to make sense of it. Help me to figure out a path forward. And but that's also where mentoring becomes critical, because I have people that I mentored 10, 15 years ago, and now, depending on the situation or the technology, they're mentoring me. And
Hmm.
so, there's also value there.
Yeah, the mentoring, it's funny because then the next obvious question is, well, how do you get a mentor? Right? And people, I mean, I get a lot of connect requests on LinkedIn. I ignore most of them because they're weaponized. I think my network's over 4,000 people, and we'll have like one mutual, and I'm like, come on, right? But then at the events, ISSA, ISACA, whatever it is, you end up meeting a lot of people. And it's funny, I got called out at, I think it was ISACA's conference. So I was talking to a small group of people, and they were asking, we were talking about mentoring, and then the question came up, well, how do I get some mentoring from you? And I'm like, well, just drop me a note. I'm not even like out of the room, and I'm already getting a thing through LinkedIn with proposed dates. And we've been doing, having the calls. This person's been doing their homework. Uh, but it's the persistence, right? Because we're also busy, and I hate not keeping my commitments, especially if I tell somebody I'm going to mentor them or do a resume review. By the way, don't ever offer to do a resume review to a room. I did that at a university one time. I received, I think it was in the 80s or 90s resumes, and it took me 6 months to do all of them. I said I'd do it. I had to do it. I'll never do that again. That
Welcome to
was
my
rough.
world, Jeffrey, for the last 5 years. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's interesting, and part of one of the programs that we just kicked off in February with ISSA SoCal chapter is flipping the script on the one-to-one and actually running mastermind groups. So thank you both for volunteering to run a mastermind group. It's now recorded, where we take 4 to 5 folks in different whether it's early stage, mid-career, or late stage, and then you just mastermind them into helping each other, but also you're guiding them into the topics that we cover. So thank you both for volunteering. That way you can bang out 5 mentoring sessions in a
Well,
course of two
Absolutely.
through 3 months.
the peanut gallery for my team that's watching this on YouTube, because I just looked over at my teams and I see all the chat going back and forth. I have 5 people right now, all volunteer, and yeah, all of you have new assignments. More to come.
Yep. Number 1, join ISSA SoCal, and then number 2, we'll set up a mastermind group just for your team. I may or may not volunteer to lead that, so I can get the scoop on how you lead. I mean, so understand what the problems that they need help with. But I love this, right? Because that is the biggest problem right now with almost every association group, or how do I scale my voice? And this is why we're doing this right now. How do I scale my voice and my experience so that more people can learn, right? And that's why I have you two on here, right? I got industry titans on here, right? So I feel like I'm blessed because I'm learning and getting validation on the thing that I think I'm doing right, but we're also sharing this with everybody else. So and we'll send you the start dates for the mentoring groups, and we'll send you the format. So thank you both, Freddie and Jeff. And that's really important, right? Because there comes a point, and now we can step into the last layer of this, right? There comes a point where, to your point, Freddie, it took you 40 years to figure out, shit, I got to get my hands out of the networking patches and all this other detail and actually level up, right? Where we have to grow, we have to, read the management books and how to deal with financing and all this other bullshit if you haven't already focused on that. But then you also, and this is part of this mission. This is why June 27th, when I landed out here in California, I've been here 5 years. I was on a mission to educate and elevate because I was tired of just working, right? And I wasn't giving back. Even when I volunteered at associations, right? They were like, yeah, and then cricket, cricket, cricket. So I was like, okay, to your point, or what you said earlier, right? My great colleague says this all the time. If you don't have a seat at the table, build a new table.
Mhm.
Right? Because
Yeah.
if you're offering to help groups or associations and they're not pulling you in, right? Build your own table. Basically what I did for the last 5 to 6 years, right? Is like, oh, okay, you can't receive me, accept me for the energy I bring and the snarkiness and everything else. Guess what? I'll bring in my own piece. So for both of you, when you get to that stage where you're comfortable at home, you've got a decent career, this, that, the other, how do you frame it to a leader to say, hey, it's time to give back? Right. Find a purpose. How do you get through that?
you want me to go?
Yeah, I mean, I could go. Yeah, I mean, like for me, it really comes down to talking. For me, I've talked to people about how they got into the industry and the frustrations they had. Like for me, because I started in technology at 17 as a young guy, getting into the army and everything. There were so many gatekeepers, so many people who said, I don't know if you're worthy of my time or worthy of me teaching you something and things of that nature. And so many people of my generation went through something similar. And so a lot of times when you can talk to them about that, that will energize them to not want to be that guy, not want to be that gatekeeper, to try to say, hey, here are the things that I learned in my career, a lot of them through failure. And this maybe can keep you from failing on a few things and give you a leg up.
Yeah, and I mean there's a lot of lessons with failure, right? For leadership positions, I've interviewed people and I've asked to describe a big failure they might have experienced through work, projects, whatever it was, and the majority of the time, nobody's failed according to them. And I'm kind of like, but as a leader, how do you grow if you haven't put yourself out there and potentially not succeeded 100% of the time? It's always kind of interesting because that's when the egomaniacs start coming out. I've interviewed a lot of
All
people,
right, who
and
has the jackhammer in the background? I just need to know who has
Sorry,
the
I've
jackhammer
got
in the
some I've
background.
got
Or
some
so,
plumbers outside my place, so sorry about that. That's why I tried to mute it.
I'm like, you're building an addition to your house, or are you tearing down something? I'm like, holy crap! This is
he's building
No,
another table mill.
no, I live in an old condo
yeah,
building, and the water is it's yeah, the water lines are constantly breaking. So
that's all good. Okay, all right, go ahead, Jeffrey.
No, I'm just thinking out loud. I'm looking through a list of questions. One of the people I was working with, mentee, mentor, just some of the common questions that were coming up. One of them was, did you know you always wanted to do this? Absolutely not. Um, I mean, I think for the most case, like even for myself, I don't know what where my end goal is. I think that's hard for people that are lifelong learners to kind of figure out, right? Because we're just curious by nature. I think a lot of us, if education didn't cost as much as it did, I'd probably have 2 master's degrees and a couple doctorates by now. But, there's the other side of the reality. I don't want to be in debt the rest of my life. And what's the real ROI? Doctorate for me, which I've considered, I was accepted into a couple programs, but it's kind of like, I just want the PhD on my business card. Like I'm sure you pick up some tools along the way, but from a career progression perspective, it does nothing for me. I think the more bang for the buck for me at this point is really, it's all about legacy. All of us at one point had to get some help just to kind of get our foothold and figure out where to go from there. And I mean, I think we can all honestly say we don't have it figured out, but we have a lot of lessons learned,
no,
right? And we could use that and kind of
Yeah, let
help
me
people along their
let me.
path.
I got to jump in to drop this story in here because um, a lot of folks have a very nice, smooth, kind of ramp up into their career, into what they're doing. Some people have the rocky road. Some people have to reinvent themselves, right? Move from the East Coast to the West Coast and become, a showboat of a drama person, no, present company excluded, right? But this one piece was one of those like really demoralizing points in my career. I was in an organization and I was giving my all. I mean, I was giving everything. I was doing four jobs. Was um, a new leader came in, a technology leader came in. One of the first things they did was brought in one of their folks, and then when they brought in their person, their office was right next to mine, and this leader was standing outside of this person's office and I'm hearing the conversation through my open door. Well-known leader in the industry who came from another big group to this interesting company, and I heard him say to his colleague he just brought on, he's like, "Hey, you know, Bobby, I don't remember his name. Hey, Bobby, we need to hire some more PhDs because we can't get our shit done. I don't think I'm like, no, we're getting our shit done. Maybe in that group there, you're not. But you know what he meant by PhD? Because he said it. He's like, pathetic, hungry, and desperate is literally what he said. Like, and my team is behind him in their cubes. And I'm like thinking to myself, this is a guy who I interviewed with when he was at his last company who didn't hire me. Now he's my boss at this company. And this is the attitude that he came in with. So even though we have great leaders who are out there, and I hope this leader does listen to this so that he knows who he is, because we're still connected, right? But when you have leaders who have a presence, who have the experience and don't give back and then have that kind of general attitude, I'll tell you right now, they're still out there, right? They're still out there. So not everyone, and that's why I wanted to pull you two in, because not everyone has that mindset of, I've gotten to a certain age, I've got the certain experience, I've got the scars. Let me at least try to help one person, right? You still have the toxicity in the industry where it's like, no, it's all about me. If I'm building a package for me to, get 7 zeros out of this, scenario, then I'm not going to invest any time in it. So what do you say to the folks who have to be vulnerable enough to say, I need help. Where do I go? And chance it. Like for example, if I would have gone to him and say, hey, and by the way, when he first came on board, I dropped it like it was hot. It was a hot mess of a lot of work that needed to be done with other groups that he was managing. And I just laid it out for him. I'm like, we're waiting for 6 months from this group. We don't have the resources here. And he took most of that and he kind of ran with it and he built a program. But what do you do when you're afraid to ask for help from those senior leaders?
Well, I mean, the reality is that you have to put yourself out there and you have to understand that when you do that, there's a chance that you can embarrass yourself. There's chances that anything can happen, but you have to figure out also what's at stake. If you don't do it, if you're not willing to put yourself out there, then the chances are you're also not going to get anything. One of the things that I did like early in my telecom career, I was a pole climber for Bell Atlantic for some years, and I got hired on with a new company called WorldCom, where I was installing circuits and things of that nature, and I wanted to learn how to do more things, and I asked them if I could go on the relocation team at night so that I can learn how to move circuits and move equipment and things of that nature. And my boss said, well, look, I can't pay you for that. I'm already paying you to work during the day, so I can't pay you for that. So I just told him, I said, look, I'll work my regular day and then I'll come back in the evening and I won't put it on my timesheet. So I'm not going to charge you. And I'll clean up after those guys after they've relocated circuits. I'll clean up all the wrappers from the fiber and all the attenuators and everything else. I'll clean up. You don't have to worry about it. And I did that for free for about a month before he realized that, okay, that I was actually good at it. And then he started to pay me for it. And so sometimes you've got to just volunteer. You just got to jump out there and say, look, I'll do something for free because in the long run, this is going to benefit me.
Yeah, nobody ends up getting the next job they want, right, without having in some fashion done it. I mean, I've had deputies report up to me, and then during candidacy, and you're going through this whole extensive vetting process. There are the people that have been doing it on their own, right? And then there are the people that, no, I'm not going to do it until I get the title and the pay. But you haven't shown me that you can do it, right?
Right.
And that's just terrible leadership. Every leader that I've ever had that was memorable and inspirational went above and beyond. I always use the phrase, don't put yourself on an island, you have to be available. And if people are coming to you, even from cross-functional teams, that's a good thing because now you're considered a trusted advisor. That goes a long way. That's not a negative. There's a lot of value in having that reputation and those relationships. A lot of people don't see that and they minimize it, right? You can't discredit that. There's value and power that comes with it. It's a responsibility.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And just like Jeffrey and Freddie just volunteered to be mastermind mentors for ISSA SoCal, we're open, and we have we have other folks who volunteered, right? And that part of that give back and kind of taking your experience and being able to share it is huge. It's huge. You're not getting paid for it. You don't have to add it to your LinkedIn. You don't have to add it to your resume,
Mhm.
but the impact that you're going to have on folks who are in the industry and don't have an outlet, right? They don't know who to go to, right? That's why, again, I've been on this mission to educate and elevate, right? I don't want it to take somebody 30 years to figure out what it took me 30 years to figure out, right? And to an earlier point that y'all made was, you have to kind of always think about reinventing yourself, right? If something isn't working, or if you're not in the right place, or if you got cultural differences with how leadership is, like, you've got to make a massive effort, and I talk about this all the time. Massive action, right? There's action you can take, but then there's massive action for you to get yourself out of that element and put yourself in the right space. So Freddie, where are you at with that kind of mindset with leadership and the give back and everything else?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why I try to give back. I mentor a bunch of college students, and one of the things that just burns me to no end is some of these colleges. Uh, First off, I think some of these colleges are not preparing the next generation of cybersecurity professionals. And what they're doing is they start them off in these this uber technical coursework, and what that does, and that's fine for someone who wants to go down the really technical road. That works for them. But what it says to the person who isn't uber technical or isn't interested in being uber technical, what we've basically told you is, you don't belong in the field, we don't need you. And that's wrong, because you have someone who could do a great job in GRC. Sorry, a great job in GRC, or in insider threat, or in supply chain risk, or so many other things, without being uber technical. So, sorry about that, but
We need to work on some noise canceling features for
yeah,
you, sir. I know you were
I
trying to
know, I know.
install it, reinstall it before you
These
hopped on,
AirPods,
but
yeah, these AirPods aren't helping that. But yeah, so trying to put people down this road of, if you're going to be in cybersecurity, you have to be uber technical. That is a myth. And by saying that, we are actually hurting ourselves, because right now, as a country, we need 10 times the amount of cybersecurity people that we have right now. And so we're not in a position where we should be discriminating based on someone who enjoys the zeros and ones and someone who doesn't.
Yeah, and the soft skills, I mean, you
all
said
right.
that earlier, and I've been I've been saying it for a long time. I mean, that's a skill set in itself. I've seen people that were brilliant engineers. You ask them to do a presentation, not even
Yes.
a lot of people, I'm talking like 20 or 30, and they just completely freeze and lock up, right? And I mean, I could tell you, I will never be a salesperson. I've never gone down that road. I'm not comfortable trying to sell anything. I don't have the chops for that. I can't BS people. I'd be a little too honest about it. It just, even with the vendor agnostic organization, I would still have a hard time in that role. It's not my thing, right? But part of it's that self-awareness and knowing, okay, these are the things I'm good at. I know I'm
Yes.
better in a leadership role than I was as an engineer. Back in the day, I thought I was a good engineer until I met a good engineer, and I'm like, whoa, like everything I thought I knew, this guy is like, it was just mind blowing, but it was also very humbling. But then building programs and teams, and kind of elevating not just the teams but the people, it's unbelievable. There's a lot of satisfaction that comes with that. One of
Yeah.
the I want to throw this out there, because I'm looking at I did a co-pilot search on a spreadsheet I have for all the questions I've had over the last 5 years from people I've mentored. And one of them asked me, how did I keep myself motivated when I was trying to get in the field, when you're grinding through school and certifications and things like that. Um, and I'm sure it's on YouTube somewhere, from me speaking at junior highs and different type of pathway programs. I used to go look at model homes. I mean, I didn't come from money. I used to have to share a room with way too many people. I'd go look at houses when I started feeling burned out. Me and a buddy of mine who's a CIO and an executive advisor today, we'd go look at houses. I mean, nothing keeps that fire lit than looking at why you're doing it, right? Understanding your why. And that's more of a Stephen Covey principle. But knowing your why goes a long way. And I know a lot of people say that money is a bad motivator. It's not necessarily a bad motivator if you don't come from it. You know what you
No,
have and
I
what you
agree.
don't have.
I
And to
agree.
get to a certain place, yeah, I mean, it's a reality.
Yeah. Yeah,
Preach.
and the other thing is, I mean, if you have any, if you have any level of ego, that will also keep you curious because, you know, you get to a point sometimes where you think you know something, and then the landscape shifts, and it's like, oh man, I got to keep up with it. And so what that does, it forces you to kind of keep yourself out there.
Let's reframe
Yeah,
ego into pride, right? And right, because ego is a dark path for me, right? Because ego will get you in trouble, but pride in your work and your quality and learning and staying ahead to me is a lot more important, right?
Well,
Like
ego has gotten
ego,
you in
like I could
trouble.
say I know
Ego has
shit,
gotten you in trouble.
it may or may not have. Attitude has definitely got me into trouble, right? But
Yeah,
maybe not
I'm sure
ego.
about that. I'm sure about that. But the other thing that I really would like for people to think about is when things aren't going well in your career, try your hardest to look internal and not external. Try not to play the game of, well, it's because my bosses just don't get it. I've been in rooms with a lot of really technical, really capable cybersecurity veterans, and they sit up there and they complain. Well, leadership doesn't understand it. The executives just don't get it. No, it's not them. It's you. I'm sorry. It's you. If 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 you're trying to get funding, and especially since when you're looking at cybersecurity, there's not really a return on your investment. You can keep them from losing an investment, but they're not really gonna make money off of it. And so what you have to figure out is what am I not saying that needs to be said? How can I get to know this person, and how can I do it a different way?
Amen. Amen. So, all right, we're closing out. Final words on efforts, organizations. Wait, you're muted, Freddie, because of your jackhammer.
No, I was
All right,
yelling at the
final
plumbers and
words.
they're killing me.
This is going to be epic when somebody listens to this. You got plumbing going on. Uh, Final words, Jeffrey, go.
people tend to put their limitations on people that are trying to do something for themselves or something that they consider great. Don't ever let people put their limitations on you. I have a bad habit. Every time somebody tells me I can't do something or shouldn't do something, I'm probably going to find a way to do it. Just, there's a lot of naysayers, especially for the younger people. Just don't ever. I mean, that's kind of my golden rule. Don't let people put their limitations on you. Achieve and overcome. Just move forward.
Whew. All right, Freddie, you're closing it out. Let's go.
Yeah, but I do say for most people getting into the industry, find a mentor. Get involved with the organization's network. Learn how to listen more so than talk. Even when you become the smart person in the room, use that intellect to serve the organization as opposed to serve your ego, and I think you'll be fine.
All right, kids. I appreciate you two bringing the hammer down on, like I said, almost a century of experience between the three of us. And ISSA SoCal is here to foster integrity, safety, and trust. I'm here to educate and elevate, and having you two on has been a blessing and an honor. So thank you for all of the contributions that you're making across the board to all of our teams, all of our communities. And let's keep this going. Stay awesome. We're done. And looking forward to seeing you either on some of our our ISSA SoCal things, or just to do another in person. Obviously, Freddie, you and I are going to connect on the cyber pathways. Jeffrey, I'm just waiting for a job offer. I'm just saying, I mean, come on. Anyway, either way, stay awesome, folks, and thank you.
Thanks a lot.